Okay, hello everybody. My name is Louise Yawi. I am an Education Abroad Specialist here in Education Abroad, part of the Office of International Affairs, and I'd like to thank you and welcome you all to this passport application workshop. So this is the first session that we're holding during this Education Abroad Expo virtual week, so thank you for joining us. This session is going to be recorded and will be available on the Education Abroad website, so you can refer back to it. If you would like to opt out of recording, that is just fine. It will be available to view elsewhere afterwards. So this session is very much for first-time passport holders only. This is a session that is designed for those who will be making their very first application for a passport. If you have previously had a passport and you're over the age of 18, you will need to apply for a new one as well. But this session is imagining that you, the user, have never applied for a passport before. Now, the easiest way to apply for a passport during this session is to work along with my voice in the background and this Zoom screen minimized, or to use the recorded webinar as a reference tool so you can go back and complete the form with my feedback in your own time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to share my screen so that you'll be able to see me work through in real time how to complete the passport application. There's a couple of things I want to point out before we really get into the weeds of this. This is not a difficult form to complete by any means, but you do need to do some preparation for it, and you do need to approach it as if it's an exam. And by that, I mean that you need to read every single question that you're asked and answer it appropriately. So knowing what the question is asking you is very important in terms of how we're going to complete this form and making sure that we've edited everything correctly at the end. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen right now, and we are going to be able to work through the passport application together. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that we need to open a Chrome browser. The US passport application works really well in the Chrome browser. Now, using it via Internet Explorer does sometimes have some wobbles, so I do recommend using Chrome over Firefox or Internet Explorer. The next thing that I'm going to point out is that I want people who are completing this form to only access the passport form through the US State Department. There are many other websites online that offer the form that we're going to complete today and give you access to it, but for safety's sake, because we know that it will be the most up-to-date form, we're only going to go to the US State Department website to access the form. Okay, so we are going to go to state.gov. It's as simple as that, and we're going to hit that and it will bring up the State Department website. So the US Department of State is actually the issuing office for all US citizens for their passport. And just to kind of go over what a passport actually is, it's a travel document. It's a federal identity document that proves that you are a citizen of a certain nation, and that will allow you access to leave and re-enter your country. Now, there is a distinction between a passport and a visa, and we're not going to get into that distinction too much today, but a passport is very much something that you as the document holder will use as identity. The visa is permission from another entity, another nation, their permission for you to enter. The passport is what will prove you are a US citizen. Okay, so we're going to come to the US Department of State website, and there are lots of updates on here that we can spend some time looking at if we choose to. Right now, we're in a different kind of time when it comes to passport applications with the current COVID crisis. However, we're really going to stick to the actual application. We're not going to worry too much about timelines and delays that there may be at the State Department. We're going to work through this as if this is a perfectly normal state of affairs in the world. Okay, so we're going to come up here to travelers. And this is where we're going to find all of the information in terms of resources for people from the US who are traveling overseas. And as you can see, there's some information regarding the Smart Traveller Enrollment Program, and that's really important. If you do study abroad, we do ask that everybody enrolls in the Smart Traveller Enrollment Program, and there's more to come on that as you move through your study abroad preparation journey. There are updates on coronavirus and so on, but we are here to complete a passport. And so what we're going to do is come down to this travel documents for US citizens section, and we're going to click get or renew a passport. So here we are, lots of kind of big scary updates and red banners at the top, but we are working to apply for a passport. So what we're going to do is scroll down to this section here, which is called I need a passport. And we are going to select apply in person. And I just want to say there are actually two parts to applying for a passport. There's the online form that we're going to complete today. And then there's actually a second step, which involves you in person attending a passport application processing appointment, typically at a post office or a library, where you submit your document and your supporting documentation for processing. And we'll talk about that step as well today and the different things you need to do in order to prepare for that appointment. So you are actually applying in person because you're going to be taking your completed passport form and your documentation to your processing appointment. So we're going to click here, apply in person. And again, we're going to scroll down and we are going to see some more updates, but we are going to come to this very first section here. And this really goes through step by step, everything that we're going to need to do in order to get our passport form completed, our evidence of US citizenship gathered, and the actual process for scheduling an appointment to go and have your passport submitted. Okay, so we're going to work through all of these steps here, but let's go back up to the top because the form that we're going to complete today is called the form DS11. This is the form that you're going to use if it's at least one of the following criteria. So if you're applying for your first ever US passport, if you're under the age of 16, if you had a previous passport when you were under the age of 16, if you've lost or damaged your passport, and if you had a passport that was last issued more than 15 years ago. Okay, so if any of those statements apply to you, that's the form we're going to use, the DS11. But for ease today, we're going to imagine this is our first ever passport. We've never had one before, and we're going to start to work through this form DS11. So we're going to click right there. This is what the form actually looks like, and this is not how we're going to complete it. We're going to use the form filler, and we're going to go back to the previous page in just a second. But I wanted to show you the kind of structure of the form before we begin. So if you were to go to a post office or you were to receive a paper application to complete by pen at a desk or at your kitchen table, this is what your passport form would look like. Now, it's important, as I said, to read through all of the information. And this tells you about the validity of a passport, applicants, your citizenship requirements, and so on, and the different ways that you can prove your identity. Okay, so this is all general information up here, which it's really important to read before we start filling out the form. But for ease, we're going to scroll all the way down here to the actual question section, and you're going to see that it's actually relatively short compared to all the preamble. There are lots of areas where you do not fill anything in that the actual post office or the passport processing agency will complete for you. But it's general personal data that they are looking for on the first step of this form, your name, address, birth date, and so on. The next section of the form down here asks for your family details. So it's going to ask about your parental information. And then finally down here, we're going to see that this is once it's submitted where the post office or the processing agency will complete to say that you've provided all the supporting evidence for your application. So this is the PDF. Now you can save this and you can print this and you can refer to it if you want to, but it is my opinion that the actual form filler online that the State Department offers is much more handy for completion because you're typing in all the answers, you can save it to your desktop, you can print at your leisure, and if you do have changes, you can go back and make edits. Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to go to get or renew a passport, and we're going to scroll back down here. And we are going to find this form, I need a passport. So we're going to go back to that apply in person. And then we are going to scroll down and we are going to see that we have the form DS11. Okay, so you are able to start completing this form. Now, filling out form DS11 is the very first step that we're going to see here on this kind of sequence of things we need to complete in order to get everything taken care of. Now, the PDF was what we just looked at, but we're going to use the form filler, which is the online version of that form, which we can complete together right now, running through each question. So you can see the areas that you need to fill in and those that you might have questions about, and that you can always come back to us in Education Abroad for clarification on. Okay, so the State Department asks that you just agree to abide by their terms and conditions. So we're going to click that we do, and we're going to hit submit. Now I'm going to complete a dummy application today. I'm going to go all the way through this with you, but I'm not actually going to save the PDF because the information in it is not going to be accurate. I am not going to be completing one for a genuine person. I'm going to be completing one for Brutus Buckeye. Okay, so we are going to start here by going to this very first tab, which is fill out online and print. So this is the DS11 form. We're going to fill it out online, save it as a PDF to our desktop, and then we're going to print it and take it along to that processing application when we are ready. Okay, so this is the beginning, and as I said before, as if this is an exam, we're going to make sure that we've read all of the information and that we're reading all of the questions before we start to answer. Okay, so to clarify just one more time, this is not an online passport application. You do still need to present this form in person. You are not submitting this form online. You will not receive your passport online or in the mail as a result of completing this form right now. There are some steps after this that you need to take care of in order to actually get your document in hand. Okay, so we're going to read through all of this, and we're going to imagine that if you are referring back to this, that you've taken care of these steps and you understand what you're doing. So we're going to start here, general information about the applicant, and we're going to put Brutus. Now, the interesting thing about this form, or the useful thing about it, is that it types automatically in capitals and uppercase letters, so you don't need to worry about having your caps lock on or off. It will do it for you. And so we're going to type in that we are Brutus Buckeye. We don't have a middle name and we don't have a suffix. Now, if you have a suffix, you're a doctor, and Mrs. and Miss, something that you want to have on your passport. It's not terribly common for students, for undergraduates to have one, but if you have a preference and you want to include it, absolutely do. Your middle name, as you can see, does not have an asterisk next to it, which means it is not required for you to complete. However, if you want that name on your passport, make sure you add it in. My recommendation is that you should not be adding in any names that do not appear on your birth certificate. If it is not a name you were given at birth, you do not need to include it on here. Okay, so we're going to type in the general information, and we're going to say date of birth. Brutus was born on the 1st of the 1st, 1999. And we're going to say, obviously, that he was born in Columbus. And we can select the state of Ohio. And we're going to make up a social security number for him. So we're going to type these in. Okay. All right, so moving on to the next section. We are going to scroll down, sorry, and we are going to complete this. It's very simple right here. I think Brutus identifies as a male, so we're going to select that. And so obviously you will select those which are most appropriate to you. And we're going to say that Brutus is 6 foot tall and that he has brown hair and he has brown eyes. And we're going to say that he is a student, and that will be this for you if you have an occupation question. As an undergraduate student at Ohio State, simply put student. Employer or school, we're going to say the Ohio State University. Now, obviously, if you were a graduate and you were not any longer a student at Ohio State, you'd put whatever your current occupation was and where you were working. Again, you can see that this has an asterisk next to it. This one does not. So it's not an obligatory or mandatory answer. Okay, so we're going to click on to next. And this is going to ask what our street address is. And so this should be your permanent address. Okay, this should not be your campus address. This should not be your dorm address. My strong recommendation is that you use your permanent address, your family address, or the address that you know has the most secure mail delivery. If you live in an off-campus apartment and you can guarantee that your mail will get there safely and you have access to your mail, absolutely you can use that address. However, I do typically recommend, if you have a family home, that you use your family home or your permanent address. Somewhere where there is often someone who collects the mail every day or can collect the mail on your behalf that you trust. So we're going to imagine for Brutus that he lives at 100 North High Street. And he lives obviously in Columbus, and he lives in Ohio. So we're going to come down here and select Ohio, and the postcode is 43210. Now, if you have an address and you would like someone to collect the mail on your behalf, for instance, perhaps your mother or your guardian at your home address, you can always add their name also here. So the in care of section is if you want someone else named on the envelope that your passport will be delivered in for them to collect. So if you are going to select this as your permanent address, click here. Okay, so the form is updated, it's registered that. So we're going to scroll back down and we're going to see the email address. Okay, now my recommendation is that we choose preferred method of communication as email because it's the most reliable. Missing calls and waiting for the snail mail, the delivered mail to arrive can be problematic. So we're going to use our OSU, our most official, most reliable email address. Now, if you prefer to use your Gmail, your Hotmail, your Yahoo, whatever, that's absolutely fine. But I do say that there is stronger support or more available support if you have an email issue via the OSU IT teams. And that can be really important if you're waiting for a very important document like your passport to arrive. So we're going to say that this is Buckeye.1@osu.edu. Okay, and then we're going to put that in again. So we're going to confirm it, Buckeye.1@osu.edu, and make sure they match. So use your most secure email address. Now, down here, it does ask for a phone number, and I do like to add that in and recommend that you add it in because it is useful in case the State Department needs to reach you or has any questions about your application. And so you can add that in. It's not obligatory, but it's something that I recommend. Okay, so we're going to click on next. And we're going to imagine that we do have travel plans, that we are going to be studying abroad, and that we have got a definite date in mind. So we're going to suggest that our trip starts on the 5th of May the 1st, 2021, and that we're going to come back on June the 1st, 2021. And let's imagine we're going to go somewhere really exciting. We're going to go to Brazil. Okay. If you don't have a trip planned, obviously there's no asterisk next to these, so you don't need to complete them, and you can just proceed on to the next question. But in this scenario, we're imagining that we do have something that's going to be happening, and then we're going to click next. Okay, bear with me 1 second, there we go. Okay, so this is a really important section, and this page is actually recreated in your actual passport document when it comes to the booklet that you will receive. It does ask that you nominate someone that can be contacted in case of an emergency. Put whoever you are most connected with, or who you would personally call first if you had an emergency. So it could be your mother, your father, your guardian, your partner. It could be a close friend. It's really whoever cares about you the most and that you would turn to for help in a time of need. So we're going to imagine that you're going to complete this according to your preference. And again, this is not a required section. It's not a mandatory section. There are no asterisks on here, but it is important for State Department knowledge and for your peace of mind when you're traveling that this information has been shared. So we're not going to complete this. We're going to imagine that you are choosing to do that if you want to, and we're just going to click next. Okay, so this section asks about your most recent passport. Have you ever been issued any of the following? A passport book, a passport card, both of those, or none? Now, the passport book is what we require all education abroad students to have. It is required for every single program. The passport card is slightly different in that it only gives access or allows you to travel to certain countries very close to the US. So that is Mexico, Canada, and the Bahamas. The passport card has restricted use. It's not as widely used, and the passport book is much more useful and has a longer duration. So we're going to ask that everybody who studies abroad applies for the passport book. So we're going to select here if we've had any of these before. However, we're imagining in this scenario that we have never applied or never owned or held a passport before. So we're going to select none, and we're going to proceed on to the next question. Okay. This is where the State Department asks for supporting information about your family, about your parents, about your birth. So we are going to complete this based on the information that is on your birth certificate. It's really important that the information matches for at least one of the parents that you are going to nominate on this form. So referring to your birth certificate, and we'll talk more about what the birth certificate looks like and how to access one if you do not have access to an original copy a little bit later. But you do have the option here to tick unknown if you do not have the information regarding your parents. You can also, as I said, only nominate one parent if that is your preference, although it is strongly recommended that you do add the information for both parents as they appear on your birth certificate. So first and middle name. So we're going to imagine that the first and middle name for Brutus Buckeye, we're going to imagine that his dad is called Robert and his middle name is William and his last name is Buckeye. And we're going to imagine a date of birth of 01/01/1970. And we're going to say that his father was born in Columbus. Now, obviously, you're going to complete this as if you're completing it for your parents, not for Brutus Buckeye. And his father identifies as male. His dad is a US citizen, so we're going to tick yes. Now, you're going to obviously modify these according to your personal situation. If your parent is not a US citizen, you do have the option to tick no there. There are some helpful dialogue boxes that pop up as you go through this with questions that can be answered. If you select no, it doesn't ask you to provide any further information at this point. You may, however, be asked further along in the process once you've submitted your application. Okay, so now we're going to come down here and we're going to fill out for his mother. So I'm going to name her me. I'm going to pretend that I am Brutus's mother. So my name is Louise Yehui. I'm going to just spell my own name correctly there. And I'm going to put my date of birth in here. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to say that I was born in London because I was female. And I'm going to pretend that I'm a US citizen. I'm not actually a US citizen, but for this I am. So we're going to tick yes. Okay, now that's that taken care of. You do not have to provide any further information about your parents, okay? What you do need to do is have that birth certificate, and again, we'll come back to it, but you don't need to have birth certificates for your parents or any proof of their identification. This is going to ask if you have ever been married, and obviously you're going to tick appropriately, but Brutus has never been married, so then we are going to move on to this next section here. Okay. And then we're going to go next. Did I miss something? Because it's asking me to maybe go back. Okay, let's try again. Oh, I've messed up the date of birth. Okay, there we go. Let me edit that. So it does call out your mistakes, as you see. So it's kind of handy to use this form because it will catch the errors that you might make as you move along. Okay, so are you known by other names? And this would be if you've ever had an officially recognized other name, or if you've used another name to own a business within the US. And typically that is not the case for the majority of our undergraduates. So we're just gonna ignore this question. There's no asterisk, so it's not required. And we're gonna move on to the next section. That's actually the form completed, believe it or not. It's been as simple as that. It's really a case of moving through each of the sections and the personal data, the address, the contact information, and then the family data that it's asking for. And this is where you have the chance to go ahead and make sure that everything that you have added is correct. This is your opportunity to go in and just double check, read through, have another set of eyes on it if that's appropriate for you, and make sure that what you have put is accurate and can be validated by the supporting documentation that you're going to share. Okay, so we're going to imagine this is all correct. We're going to read through it and we're going to hit next. So this is the final stage really of completing this form. So the passport options are where we select which kind of document we want. And as I mentioned, we're going to ask that every study abroad student selects for a passport book. That's the only document you'll be able to use to travel with on our programs. Okay, so we're going to select passport book. The passport book cost is $110 US. Okay, that is the processing fee set by the State Department. It is not something which we set at OSU or on a state level. That's the federal cost of processing a passport, to do the searches, to make sure you are who you are, and to actually create the document. We're going to select this routine service, which is free, and that's the service that's going to return it to you by mail. And we're going to, the delivery service here is free as well. So we don't need to select any of these extra areas here. If you wanted your passport to get to you quicker, you could choose that it would be expedited. And that means processed speedily, essentially. So if you had an upcoming emergency travel or you needed to leave the country quite quickly, you could choose the expedition fee, which would mean that it would be processed more quickly and you would receive it faster. However, for general study abroad programs, you do not need to do that if you are applying within enough time before the start of your program. Okay, so right down here at the bottom, we're going to see that there is a total fee of $145. Now, why is that? You're going to pay $110 to the Department of State. You're going to pay $35 to the acceptance facility, and that's the processing appointment that you're going to have at the post office or the library that we're going to show you how to schedule in just a second. So when it comes to the total cost, this is nothing that you are paying now. There is no need for you to worry about paying this online, having a credit card handy. This is all payable in person, either by money order or cash or check or card at the appointment when you go to have it processed. So this is the amount we know we need to pay, but we don't need to pay anything online now to create the form. So we're going to hit next. And this is very important. We are going to create the form. Okay, so first of all, we are not going to sign the form once we've printed it. We are going to save it to our desktop. We are going to print it, and we are going to make sure that everything looks okay before we leave for our appointment. So this next step, once we have gone through, that form has been created and it has been saved to your desktop, is important to follow. Okay, so let's go through it step by step. 1, print your forms. Do not sign your DS11. That's the application that we've just created. There are printing instructions that tell you what you need to do and how the printout should look when it comes to actually turning that soft copy into a hard copy that you'll be taking along to your appointment. Step 2 tells you how to submit your forms. You must appear in person at an acceptance facility or a passport agency with your DS11. DS11, again, is the form that we just completed. Now, what we're going to do here is select the local agency or office that we'll be able to go to so that you can collect, so that you can apply for your passport. So we're going to go here and we're going to use this tool on the State Department website to find our nearest post office. And we're going to imagine that Brutus lives on campus. Whoops. And we're going to put the address in and we're going to see if we can find a facility which is nearby. So I like to recommend that students who are on campus go to the Beachwold Station post office. They are the friendliest people and they do a lot of our applications there. Okay, so we can see that yes, they have appointments, but we need to go actually to usps.com scheduler. So we're going to copy this link. Bear with me 1 second. And we are going to open it in a new tab up here. We're going to visit the USPS website to schedule an appointment for our passport application processing. So very intuitive for this top section here, but we're going to pay attention, as I said. So new passport only. We're going to imagine that we're first-time passport holders, and it's just for 1 person, but nobody is under the age of 16. It's for 1 adult. And we're going to search by location. So let's go down here and again put in the zip code 43210. And here is where we hit search, and this is going to find us the nearest locations that offer passport processing. Okay. So I said that I liked this Beachwold location, which is fairly close to campus, and we're going to select this as where we want to be. Now, when it comes to the date that we want to have our application processed. What we want to make sure we're doing is that we're giving ourselves enough time to collect all the supporting information that we're going to use for the application. So we're going to click on this calendar and we're going to see when they have available. Now, I think I would like to go and get my passport on September 30th because that gives me almost 3 weeks to collect all the information that I will need to bring with me to the appointment. And I'm going to select the date there. Okay, so now this pops up with all the available times. And I'm going to say that I want to go first thing in the morning because that way I've got it over and done with and I can go to my evening classes. So I'm going to select that. And then from here, you are going to complete your first name, your last name, your phone number and your email address. And I always recommend that you that you tick this box here because you do receive a reminder text messages the day before your appointment for you to go along. So you don't forget to put it on your calendar. And then you select that you have read the terms and conditions, and then you can hit review appointment, and that will be you scheduled to go to the post office to apply for your passport. Okay, so we've done 2 steps here, but there are a number of things that we need to take to our post office appointment to get the actual document processed. So we are going to refer back to either this PDF here, or we're going to go back to the passport application site on the State Department, and we're going to look at what we need to submit with our passport, which is this section here. Okay. This is really important to follow, and this is where most students end up kind of not stumbling, but stalling slightly in terms of collecting what they need. So absolutely what you need to take with you are 2 copies of that DS11 form that we just completed. Make sure it's been appropriately printed per the instructions on the website and that it's printed one-sided, okay? What you will want to do is maybe use one of the university printers that prints high speed and in color so that you can double check everything before you go. So to submit with your form, you're also going to need to have 1 recent passport photo. A passport photo is not a selfie taken on your iPhone. It's not your Facebook profile picture. It is an official photograph taken by a licensed photographer who knows how to take US federally recognized passport pictures. That sounds very complicated. However, what it really means is going to somewhere like CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, anywhere that has a photography section and asking for them to take a passport picture. They will know exactly what the requirements are. However, what you can do is click here and view the details on what your passport picture needs to look like. So going down here, you will be able to see tips for submitting your photo about resolution, print size and quality, your pose and expression. And then there are some good examples and there are some bad examples of what you should look like in your picture. So what you want to do is go to your nearest CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, whatever is going to be able to take your passport picture that's closest to you and get those taken. Don't just get 1 taken. Typically they come in a set of 4. And these style of photographs, pictures are actually really useful for other things, for other ID cards and other applications that you will use. So there's never any harm in having more than you'll actually need for this application. Okay, so we're going to go back here and we are going to know that we have to get 1 recent passport photo. Don't do anything to it. Don't write on the back of it. Don't staple it to the form. Keep it in the folder, the little envelope they give you in the store. And then when you go into the appointment, they'll take it out of the envelope and verify. Okay, the next thing that you're going to need is your proof of US citizenship. And this typically comes in the form of your birth certificate or your certificate of naturalization or a consular report of birth abroad, citizenship certificate, or a previous US passport. Now, as I said, we're going to imagine this is a very straightforward application and that you have completed this for the first time, and so you're going to be using your birth certificate typically. Now, a couple of statements about the birth certificate. It does need to be an original or a certified copy. A certified copy is not a photocopy of your original. A certified copy is one where a recognized body, agency, or office or institution has provided you with a stamped copy of your birth certificate. It's not one that you can copy yourself. Now, to get your birth certificate, if you do not have the original or a certified copy, you can visit the Department of Health for whichever city or state you were born in, and you will have the opportunity to apply through that website for a copy of your birth certificate, where you appear in person at the Department of Health and ask for a copy. There is a cost associated with it that varies from state to state. That's one option. Or you can also contact the hospital if you were born in a hospital where you were born and ask for their vital statistics office, and they will be able to direct you as to how you can receive a copy of your birth certificate from that hospital. Now, that's one proof of US citizenship. And obviously there are many different ways that people prove their birth or naturalization or their citizenship. So the main one that we're going to be looking at is birth certificate. If you have questions about any of the other forms, don't hesitate to get in touch with our office and we can talk you through it. Okay, the next thing that we are going to need is passport fees. And this is that $110 that we mentioned is payable to the Department of State for the processing and handling of your application. Now, this takes on the form of a money order, which is a really uncommon way of paying for things in almost every other walk of life. You may never have come across a money order before, but they are available at every bank. If you bank with Chase, if you bank with Huntington, you'll be able to go in and for around 50 cents, they will provide you with a money order totaling the amount that you request. Essentially, you will be giving them $110 in cash, and they will be giving you a paper form of that money in the form of a money order. What you're going to do is make sure that money order is made payable to the Department of State. That's really important, that you fill it out to the order of to pay the Department of State for $110. So again, just to go over that again, you're going to visit your local bank and you're going to request a money order to the value of $110. They are going to issue you with a money order, which is essentially a check or a piece of paper that totals that value. And you're going to fill it in to the Department of State. That's who it's going to be payable to. That's that $110. There is also the amount that you're going to need to pay to the post office or the facility that is actually that you're visiting for your in-person appointment, and that's going to be $35. And now you're able to pay that $35 by using your debit card, your bank card, paying in cash at the post office. Typically, they will ask that you use your debit card because they can give you a receipt for the whole transaction. So that's important to recognize as well if you don't have a credit or debit card, that you may need to have someone with you who will let you use theirs. Okay, so your total cost, $145. The money order only for the Department of State pays for the document, for the actual processing and handling. The passport acceptance facility, the post office, the library, whoever you're going to be visiting, that amount is $35, and that is payable using your bank card when you arrive for your appointment. Okay, so we're on to the fourth and final step of identity that we're going to need to prove. And clicking on each of these areas here is going to bring up much more information about how you can submit proof of identity. So proof of identity is also going to take the form of something like your state ID, your driver's license, your other photo identification. And so you're going to need to have that available and valid for you to apply for your passport. So many of the students that I help use their driver's license or their state ID if they aren't drivers, and they take that with them to the appointment. Okay, so there's more information here that you can read about in supporting your DS11 application in terms of your second form of ID. So we're going to go back, we're going to go back to this page, and we're going to see that those are the four things that we need to take with us. This is very important, what I'm about to say now. You are going to need a photocopy of each of these things: your proof of US citizenship and your proof of identity. These photocopies need to be clear, they need to be legible, and they need to be on separate pieces of paper. So your photocopy of your birth certificate plus your original, your photocopy of your driver's license plus your original, You will have more than one passport photo, so you do not need to photocopy that. Okay, you don't need to photocopy your banker's draft, sorry, your money order. You do not need to photocopy that. The two things that you will need photocopies are your proof of identity, so your driver's license or your state ID, and your proof of US citizenship, which is your birth certificate. So we're going to feel confident that we've taken care of all of these items. We're going to always bookmark the pages that we work on so that we can refer back to this for more information if we get stuck. Okay, so we're going to say I have read and I have acknowledged the steps and information contained above. And we're going to go ahead now and we're going to create this form. And this form is going to show us as a completed PDF. So the PDF that we saw previously was blank, but this one here has been completed with all of Brutus Buckeye's information. So as we scroll down, there you are, you'll see it all complete, neatly typed in for you. We've gone through, we've checked all the errors. All we need to do now is to print this. Well, remember, we're not going to sign this, we're just going to print it. And we're going to take it to our post office or our library appointment that we scheduled using that USPS tool, the appointment scheduler. We're going to take this along with the things that it mentions up here on the form. So this is a handy reminder built into your passport application that you have to take all of the following items with you to your appointment: your proof of US citizenship, your proof of identity, your color photograph, and your fees. Now, what will happen at your appointment is you will visit the post office and they will talk through each of the documents that you have to support your application. They will read through it and make sure it's all completed correctly. They will then ask you to swear that everything is accurate. They will ask you to sign the document in front of them. They will take the copies and the originals of your supporting documentation and make sure that they are all valid. They will return to you only your state ID. They will take your original birth certificate and the copy, and they will send that off to the State Department on your behalf. They will then, at the State Department, begin the process of your file search to look through to make sure you are who you say you are, and then they will create your passport document. Now, your passport document is not issued the next day. It takes some time, and the current processing time at the State Department has really slowed down for obvious reasons. It's taking much longer than it typically does for students, or sorry, for applicants to receive their passports. However, this should not stop you from applying. There is absolutely nothing from stopping you right now from applying for your document. The reason I say that is because it's valid for 10 years. So even if you apply without thinking that you're going to study abroad, without knowing for sure that you're going to study abroad, you have this really important document in your hand that is valid for 10 years. And I also want to say something about the excitement of applying for your first passport. It's really encouraging right now to do something positive. And I very much feel like applying for a passport, a document that gives you freedom, it gives you independence, it gives you the opportunity to dream about where you might go in the future. This is just a nice thing to do right now. And having everything ready and everything in place for when you do feel like you maybe want to schedule that appointment and go to the post office and pay those fees and send that money in and get that document processed. This is an optimistic exercise right now. And it's one, if it's your first ever passport, that is actually pretty fun and really exciting to take part in. So even if you are not certain you're going to be leaving the US anytime soon, I totally recommend for everybody that they apply for a US passport. This is a piece of freedom in your future. The opportunity to travel is one that the excitement has never left me, and it's one that I really enjoy seeing in students when they come to talk to me about study abroad. Applying for your passport is your first step in an international experience, and I like to share the excitement of students when they finally get it and they have it in hand. So that was a webinar workshop on how to complete your US Department of State American US Citizen Passport first time document holder. We offer one-on-one sessions absolutely for students who need extra help as they work through the actual application. We're always happy to work with you on Zoom or to give you a call if that's easiest as you complete this documentation. But I do want to say that for all education abroad programs, a passport is required. It does not mean that you have to have one when you apply for your program. It means you have to have one X number of months before you travel. So the sooner you start working on this, particularly in light of the delays at the State Department, the better. Again, we are always here to help. Educationabroad.osu.edu is where you will be able to access more information on applying for a passport. We will make this webinar available to people to watch in their own time. And again, my name is Louise Yahui. I am YAHIAOUI.2 @osu.edu. So if you want to follow up and you have direct questions for me, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'm going to thank you for joining me today for this passport workshop. I really hope you apply. I hope you've been inspired to start working on this application. And I really encourage you to look at the other Expo opportunities we have this week happening during our virtual Expo. There are loads of different sessions and lots of opportunity to learn more about what we do in study abroad. So feel free to go to educationabroad.osu.edu to see the full timetable of events. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Okay, so thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.